morning, everyone. Today I'm with Peter Deadman. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning.
So for a quick introduction, Peter is one of the greatest propagator of the Chinese traditional medicine in Europe. He's also author of two amazing books, Manual of Acupuncture and Live Well, Live Long. Okay, so Peter, can you tell us something about Yang Sheng, because this is our main topic for today's interview?
Yeah. So Yang Sheng translates as the nourishment of life, how to build and encourage a healthy life and extend our life to increase our lifespan. It's drawn from at least 2,500 years of Chinese culture, comes from various traditions, Confucianism, Taoism, particularly medicine, folk medicine, martial arts. And it's a kind of, we accumulate a kind of manual for the human body, how to live in such a way as to increase our chances of being healthy, of having well-being, having a long life.
Perfect. And how about the constitution that we are born with? Because this is something that's coming with our life in the beginning. And can we do something with that if Yang Sheng can help us with that?
Yeah. So constitution is very, very important. It's probably the single biggest factor in how long we can expect to live. If we have long-lived parents and grandparents, our chances of living a long life and actually being strong and healthy are much greater than if we have parents and grandparents who are weak or short-lived. So that's what we call the inherited constitution, and it usually explains why we get these individuals who live to be 100 years, 105 years, 110. It's nearly always down to their inherited constitution. But what Chinese medicine and the Yang Sheng tradition teaches is even if we have a weaker constitution, through our lifestyle and behavior, we can build, kind of compensate to some degree for a weak constitution. And that means that we can build our health and our lifespan. And actually, people who have a very strong constitution, they're lucky, actually. They don't get sick very much, got lots of energy, but they never have to learn to look after themselves. And so often by a certain age, 70, 60, 70 or something, they may suddenly go down with a heart attack or something because they've been used to drinking too much alcohol or smoking too much or exhausting themselves too much. So it's yin-yang.
If parents are expecting a child, they can do something to increase the constitution to make it stronger for their child?
So there's a very long tradition. In China, it goes back, like many of these ideas, at least 2,000 years. It's called, in Chinese, it's called taijiao. It means fetal education, education of the fetus, which is doesn't immediately make sense. It's the observation they've made that the life experience of the mother during pregnancy can have a significant effect on the lifelong chances of health and longevity of the child. And it's particularly in the earlier part of pregnancy that it's important, in the first 4 or 5 months. And the main factor that Taijiao identifies is emotional distress or shock. So if the mother experiences severe shock or very distressing experiences, that can cause lifelong problems for the child. Obviously, we now know that simple things like not smoking, not taking drugs, and not using alcohol are significant. And actually, diet is a little bit less significant than you'd expect, although it's still important. So, just out of interest, this idea that mother's lifestyle affects the outcome of a child through their life was not accepted in Chinese medicine until the 1950s or 1960s. And then it was discovered, for example, that children born with low birth weight were likely to have a much tougher life. And then it was discovered that women have shocks in the early part of pregnancy. That also affects their child. So we can't control life, but the general aim for a pregnant mother is to try and lead a peaceful life, a calm life, and everybody around her, ideally in an ideal world, helps her do that, and society helps her do that.
Perfect. And how about the exercise?
Yeah, exercise is absolutely good. But, you know, the Chinese idea of exercise is keep moving, but don't exhaust yourself. So whether running marathons is a great idea when you're pregnant, I would suggest it probably isn't long term, but certainly to keep moving and to do, you know, walking and Tai Chi and yoga, these are all great.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And how about women that already give the birth? If they can do something to stay healthy and keep their energy?
Yeah. So the time after childbirth, the first few weeks after childbirth, are considered to be absolutely crucial time that women have to really look after themselves. So there's this tradition in China called doing the month, which is very, very strict, much stricter than most women would accept. So women have to stay inside the house, not to go out into the cold, but also we would now say not to expose themselves to infection outside, to avoid cold water. They mustn't wash their hair at all, so in case their head gets cold, they have to stay in excessively warm rooms and eat very rich, nourishing food. So to some degree, particularly for modern women, it's experienced as a strict imposition. But there's lots of evidence that it makes an enormous difference to the experience of women after childbirth. And there seems pretty good evidence that it reduces the risk of postnatal depression and particularly reduces the risk. Half of women, Western women, report they're still absolutely exhausted 1 year childbirth. So this is designed to prevent this deep exhaustion, and it's also considered to be an investment in future health. So the body is considered vulnerable after childbirth. Chinese medicine says that's a time when cold and damp can enter in the body and then in subsequent years lead to arthritis. So yeah, it's a strict tradition, but I think there's some interesting merit in it. Yeah.
Perfect. And can we go back to the idea of the Yang Sheng? From what I can understand, there are 4 main pillars of this idea. Can you explain a little?
Yeah, 4 main pillars and some other important things. But the 4 main ones, I describe them as the 4 legs of a chair. When a chair's got 4 legs, it's stable and strong. When it loses 1 leg, not so stable, and so on. So it's important to understand that because some people are very good at one of the pillars, and they're not so great at the others. So the first, most important, always comes first, is cultivating the mind and the emotions. Because unless we are kind of a bit integrated emotionally, we can't look after ourselves. We try and we fail, we make decisions. I'm going to go to the gym every day, I'm going to stop smoking, I'm going to drink less, and it doesn't happen because we're kind of at war with ourselves. And also because unregulated emotion, if we constantly pass between anger and fear and worry and anxiety, that's very damaging to our health. So first of all, we cultivate the mind and the emotions through things like meditation, yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong, slow deep breathing, which has a very regulating effect on the mind. So that's number 1. Number 2 is diet. So some people do lots of meditation, but they eat a terrible diet. So diet is really important. It's a big subject, but there's a Chinese saying, taking medicine without changing your diet wastes the skills of the physician. So diet is just fundamental to health and disease. The third is looking after the body. So that includes the right kind of exercise, movement, activity, and getting sufficient physical rest, not overdoing it, not exhausting the body. That's important. And the final one simply is sleep. Getting enough sleep, getting good sleep. Outside that, there are other ones. There's sex life, there's nourishing ourselves with nature, with music, with art. There's understanding how to look after ourselves as we get old, so we can have a really enjoyable old age. And actually, final part of Yang Sheng is how to die well.
So I was wondering, you talk about the sleep, that is also very important. Do you have some advice, maybe how to get a good night's sleep?
I think the advice is pretty similar to what anybody would hear from their doctor or from their newspaper. You know, there are certain things that Chinese in the old days didn't have to contend with. They didn't have smartphones to look at midnight. They didn't have televisions. Probably didn't have much artificial lighting. It tended to be, especially if you were a peasant, when it got dark, you went to bed. You know, your mind was not hyper. You woke up at dawn, very natural, following a natural rhythm. So we want to kind of copy that if we can, to quieten the mind before bedtime. It's pretty obvious. I think the most important thing in the modern age is to understand how vital sleep is for health. Sleep is a miracle. You know, it's the most powerful medicine we have. We can end the day tired, exhausted, maybe weary in our bones, weary in our minds. We lie down, we sleep, we wake up, everything's better. How incredible is that? So we must treat it as a precious medicine, not neglect it.
Perfect. Okay, so I have only one last question. It's about the breath, because I know that it's very helpful for body, mind, and everything, but not many people can do it right. Can you maybe share with us how to breathe properly? Yeah,
so breathing is really interesting. It's one of the only mechanisms in the body that's both autonomic and conscious. Autonomic means goes on without us having to do anything, like the heartbeat. So we cannot think about the breath all day long, and we will still breathe in and out, but we can also control it. So controlling the breath has been used by all kinds of traditions, yoga, the Chinese health cultivation traditions, to very dramatically change the state of our body and our mind. And we now know from research that's been done in the last few years that when all human beings, when we slow our breath down to a rate, it's called coherent breathing, to around 5 or 6 breaths a minute, it triggers all kinds of wonderful reactions in the body. It puts us into a very calm, restorative parasympathetic state. It improves the condition of the heart. It lowers blood pressure, and so on. So the aim really is to slowly, without any effort, mustn't force the breathing ever, to slowly, by practice, learn to breathe in through the nose, but not feel that we're filling the upper chest. Ignore that. We don't even feel that we fill the ribs. We feel the breath goes down, 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 into taking the diaphragm down. And that's what we want to develop. And at first it can be a bit hard because we feel tight in the chest, and we feel very conscious of our breathing. It just comes with practice. So we practice breathing in through the nose, taking it down, 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 filling the lower belly, and then reversing at roughly, shall I show you the rate of breathing?
Yeah, if you can, it's really perfect.
So, roughly, but again, never forcing. It would be to breathe out, and then to breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5. And in. And out. We practice this regularly for a few minutes every day. It's a wonderful effect on calming us. You know, so if we suffer from anxiety and nervousness, agitation, insomnia, difficult sleeping, and also if we have high blood pressure. Slow breathing is the only non-chemical pharmacological treatment accepted by the American FDA for treating high blood pressure. So 10 to 20 minutes every day lowers blood pressure. So that's another simple, free tool. We don't have to spend a lot of money on this stuff. Get lots of sleep, eat simple, natural food, breathe well, learn to get some control over our mind and emotions. That's Yang Sheng.
Yeah, it sounds simple, but I really believe it's not that easy to get to that point.
No, there's a famous Chinese doctor in the 19th century who said, there is nothing miraculous in the world. There's only the simple. But when we perfect the simple, it becomes miraculous. So you don't have to go seeking for like expensive super foods and super medicines. It's really the basic stuff of life. Eating, sleeping, drinking, calming the mind, having an active body.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time and that wonderful knowledge.
Thank you.
Thank you.